Hello and welcome to the Disability Law Q&A session with me, Martin Willemse. I am a partner and the Western Canada Disability Practice Leader at the firm of Samfiru, Tumarkin LLP, where we handle all things disability, as well as other insurance cases, for example, critical illness and life insurance benefits that may have been denied. We also have an employment team, so these often go hand in hand. So we're very fortunate at our firm where we handle both disability issues as well as employment issues. Please send your questions along via social media and we'll address them as they come through. We welcome all questions. This week particularly, we've had a lot of questions regarding the application process for LTD, and I thought it would be a very good opportunity to provide a little bit of a primer as to how to commence or to start an LTD claim and where to submit it once you have all your documents in place. So one of the first things to do is you want to know whether you have coverage. How do you know that? If you have employment, in other words, if you're working for a bank or for a smaller employer, you will ask your human resources whether you actually have long-term disability coverage should you become disabled. Some employers will also have short-term disability coverage where the employer may be providing the benefit itself, meaning, in other words, that they are self-insured, or it may be that the employer has an insurance company who also insures weekly indemnity benefits or short-term benefits as they refer to. Most employers do have long-term disability coverage, more so than short-term. So if you do wonder whether you have coverage, look at your benefit booklet, consider your employment contract, and also speak with the Human Resources Department to find out whether you actually have that coverage. If you were to become disabled, many people wonder, where do I start? What do I do? So first things first, as with every session that we have, I always recommend to anybody who is on claim, in other words, whether your claim is being paid or whether you are submitting a claim or in the process of submitting a claim, make sure that you see your doctor on a very regular basis. That means that if you have a doctor in place, go see the doctor if you find that your health is worsening to the point that you may no longer be able to work. Have the discussion with your doctor as to whether the doctor supports that you should stop working. Sometimes it is the case where the doctor actually recommends to the patient that the patient stop working. Then gather the documents from your Human Resources Department. They may provide you a link where you may download the documents, or they may simply send them to you. There will be 3 documents. One is called the employee statement, which is a document that you will complete detailing your disability, when you became disabled, your condition, your occupation, your title. There's also a document called an attending physician statement. That document you submit to your doctor and have the doctor complete it. That document is important because the doctor is going to identify what your diagnosis or diagnosis may be, also detail when you became disabled, how often the doctor sees you, what type of treatment you're receiving, what medications you're taking, what your restrictions and limitations are, what the doctor's objective observations are, what your subjective complaints may be. That document is important to the extent that, as I've said on many occasions, your disability claim is important to the extent that what is the diagnosis? But the most important thing is functional impairment. So the doctor has to identify what your functional restrictions and limitations may be. Note those down. If you have a mental health disorder, what are your restrictions? What are your limitations? It's not enough to say that the patient has major depression. What does that mean? Many people do have depression, yet they work. So the doctor has to differentiate why it is that you have this condition, yet you cannot work. And the final document is the plan sponsor statement. That is a document that is prepared by the employer, where the employer will identify when you started to work, what your last day of work was, whether you're receiving any other benefits, what your position may have been, what your occupational duties may be, and submit that as a package to the insurance company. They will then adjudicate the claim, be in contact with you by potentially conducting what is called a functional telephone interview, where they will ask you lots of questions and then make a decision on your claim. Of course, if it is denied, by all means reach out to us and we can offer to you a free consultation where we will review the policy, the denial letter, potentially your medical records, and discuss with you your circumstances so that you can decide how to proceed. We will give you the options and you can make an informed decision. As you can see on the screen, go to disabilityrights.ca if you have any further question and seeking further information. We have a question from Henry. Would anyone in your office be willing to do some case law research with respect to being assaulted at the workplace? Company failed to provide a safe workplace. If it is a workplace situation where, well, clearly where the person was assaulted at work, you likely will have a WCB claim to pursue. Unfortunately, at our firm, we do not handle WCB claims. What we do handle is disability claims. It's a good question in the context that sometimes, let's say Henry has long-term disability coverage at work as well. If the claim at WorkSafe is denied, he may still have an avenue to pursue through long-term disability. That claim should be submitted even if WCB approves the claim, because there are limitation periods and specific timelines within which you must apply. Consider what would happen if your claim were to be approved by WCB. After, say, 6 months, they deny the claim, but you're still unable to return to work. In that scenario, you want to have applied to long-term disability so that they do not deny your claim later on, saying that you missed the timeline. Sadia asks, I am on LTD since 2019. I was approved after the 2-year. The insurance wants me to enroll in a mandatory rehabilitation program for treatment-resistant depression and fibromyalgia. So it's an interesting question because I just read an article this morning about this. When the insurance company wants you to submit to or participate in a rehabilitation program, my first point on this would be have a discussion with your doctor. So you have fibromyalgia and treatment-resistant depression, which means to me that you've tried various medications, they haven't worked, you may have done counseling, and your condition isn't improving. Hopefully, you are seeing your doctors, and hopefully not just your doctor, but also a psychologist, potentially a psychiatrist on a very regular basis. So that when this issue arises where the insurance company wants you to engage in a mandatory appeal or a mandatory rehabilitation program, your doctors would be in an informed position to provide an opinion as to whether that program is appropriate for you. Sometimes insurance companies have you attend an independent medical examination where, based on that report, the insurance company will say, we want you to participate in a rehab program or in a graduated return to work program. If that is the case, have the insurance company send the report to your doctor and then discuss with your doctor whether the doctor agrees with the findings and the recommendations. If that was not the case, where they did not send you for an IME, an independent medical examination, but they are simply unilaterally mandating that you participate in a rehab program, have the discussion with your doctor. If your doctor disagrees with the idea of the program, have the doctor put in writing why that is. For example, the doctor may say that the rehab program that they are suggesting is not going to be helpful and potentially has the risk of worsening your condition to the point that if you had made any gains, that those gains will be lost, or that you may be on disability for a much longer period because the program itself is not appropriate for your condition. It really depends on where you are at with your treatment and whether the doctors agree with the proposed program. If they do not agree, submit that letter to the insurance company. If the insurance company then says, well, we are ignoring what your doctor says, we're insisting that you participate, reach out to us so we can have a discussion with you. Because the concern here is that you do not want the insurance company to deny your claim based on them saying you are breaching the terms of the policy. Under the terms of the policy, you are expected to participate in a reasonable treatment program that has been approved by the insurance company. But the big question is, what is reasonable? If you've tried various treatments, I've seen situations where people do have a mental health disorder, like in your case, and the insurance company was insisting on a specific type of treatment where the doctor said, if the person engages in this treatment, they may regress because they will be exposed to trauma throughout what they've experienced before and reliving it all over again, which will put them in a position where they will regress and not improve. Consider that, have that discussion with the doctor. And again, if they were to deny your claim based on the fact that they're saying you are breaching your obligations, reach out to us. Or you can even do that earlier on before you actually reach that point. So we can review the claim with you and discuss with you what your options are. Again, as you can see on the screen, go to disabilityrights.ca for more information. BB Smooth writes, do I have that right? Yes, BB Smooth. How does LTD work when dealing with a progressive illness? If you can manage your condition for a few years but will eventually have to stop working, is that something that you could receive LTD for? Yes, most definitely it is. I've seen this happen in many cases where a person has a condition, for example, multiple sclerosis. The person has MS, continues to work. There's an expectation that you carry on working in a reasonable manner. But if your condition is such that the restrictions and limitations as a result of the diagnosis impacts your ability to function at work, that's when you may want to submit a claim in discussions with your family physician or your other treatment providers. What I've seen happen, though, is where a person did do exactly that. The insurance company is expecting you that you carry on working as best as you can. But when you actually get to the point where your condition worsens and you can no longer work, I've seen that they say, well, you've managed this far. What has changed? Why would you not be able to work now? Of course, it doesn't happen in all cases, but I have seen cases like that. In my mind, if you see your doctor regularly, if you have a progressive illness like you do potentially, and if it is documented that you have worsened, in other words, that your restrictions and limitations have become more pronounced, and that's detailed in the clinical records, I would be dismayed, that's probably the good word to use here, if the insurance company is denying your claim. Insurance companies, let me go back. Diagnosis, as I've said before, is important. The most important thing is functional impairment. And that is, and many people miss this point, see your doctor regularly. Report to your doctor your restrictions and limitations. If something is worsening, report that to the doctor so that when you do submit your claim, your doctor will feel that they can provide you with sufficient support because they've seen the regression, they've seen how things got worse, to the point that they said, you really should stop working now. And your doctor will feel empowered to write a supportive letter or to complete the attending physician statement based on their own individual objective observations. So again, it's a long way of saying to you, if you do have a progressive illness and you've managed for a period of time, but you eventually have to stop working, is that what LTD is for? Yes, that is exactly what it is for. If you are unable to perform the essential duties of your occupation, not your job, your occupation, because of an illness, to the extent that it has impacted your functional abilities, that is exactly what LTD is for. And if your claim were to be denied by the insurance company, specifically in a condition where you may, I'm not saying that this is going to happen with you, BB Smooth, but if it were to happen, I welcome having a discussion with you or any members of our team. As you know, we practice in BC, Alberta, and Ontario, that way we have offices elsewhere in Canada as well, other than in Quebec and the territories. We have a question from Pierre on Facebook. What happens if you are let go from your job when you are about to go on disability leave? I have 2 operations scheduled that will require me to be off for several months, but was just let go shortly before my procedure. This is a very difficult question. It's a difficult scenario to manage. Basics provide that if you have coverage through your employer and you are let go, in other words, your employment is terminated, your coverage may also terminate. It depends on the terms of that termination, whether there's an extension beyond that. But the point is, you can only submit a claim while you have coverage. If you are scheduled to go for operations or surgeries in the future, and you've lost your employment, which may likely mean that you've lost your coverage as well, if you become disabled at a later point, when you have the surgery and you're no longer covered, you will not have a claim to pursue. So Does it mean potentially that your disability is such that you are required to have surgeries, but you're already impacted in your ability to perform your duties? If that is the case, you may want to apply for LTD benefits or for disability benefits right now. Submit that claim while you still have coverage. Because the moment you lose coverage and you become disabled at a later date, even if it's a week afterwards, the insurer will deny your claim based on the fact that you are not covered to submit a claim. So that's important to understand. I've seen cases where people have worked, if we speak about a progressive illness, where a person has continued to work, their condition got worse and worse to the point that the employer terminated their employment, not necessarily because of the disability, but maybe because of another reason. Often, though, because of the disability. Then they submitted a claim to the insurance company, and the insurer turned around and said, well, no, you carried on working until you were terminated, which shows us that you are able to work, that you were able to work, and that you were not disabled while you still had coverage. It's irrelevant to us if you become disabled later on because your coverage is no longer in place. So again, see your doctors regularly, follow your doctor's advice. If the doctor recommends that you stop working, consider following that advice, because if your employment is terminated and you then want to submit a claim, it's going to be a difficult thing to manage. Francine says, is it true that LTD stops at the age of 65? So, as I say to many people, nothing is ever just white or just black. There's a lot of gray. It really depends on the language of the policy. Having said that, the vast majority of long-term disability policies that you have through your employer, in other words, group LTD policies, do provide that benefits end at the age of 65. Some may provide that benefits are only payable for 2 years. Others may provide that benefits are payable to the age of 60. If this is an individual policy, there are things called riders that you can purchase. A rider is if you go and speak to a broker and you say, I want to purchase individual disability coverage. The broker will discuss with you what is available. So you may buy a policy, which is an individual policy, like many self-employed people do this, psychologists, lawyers, business owners, etc. So if you purchase that individual policy, you may also be able to purchase something called a rider. A rider may provide that benefits extend to the age of 70 or even later, or that the definition for the disability never changes. With group policies, we have policies that provide that generally for the first 2 years, you must prove that you cannot perform the duties of your own occupation. After that period, in other words, beyond the 2 years, the definition changes. Then you have to prove that you cannot perform the essential duties of any other occupation based on your transferable skill sets, which you could potentially perform within your medical restrictions and limitations, and that would pay you a certain amount of money. It's quite often the same as your long-term disability amount. If you purchase an individual policy, you can purchase a rider, which prevents there being a change of definition. In other words, the only assessment through the life of the claim to the age of 65 or whenever the policy may provide the benefits end would be, are you unable to perform the duties of your own occupation, never changing to that of any occupation. There are also some other riders that you could purchase, but have a discussion with the broker if that is where you were going to go. But if it is a group policy, Francine, we're happy to review the policy with you. But yes, likely benefits will end at the age of 65. Like with everything, though, the policy is a contract. The contract governs the relationship between you and the insurance company and provides when benefits are payable and when they end. Linda B says, I am considering moving due to the cost of living. I'm currently on LTD. If I move to a different province, will this affect my LTD? Similar to Francine's question, it really depends on the language of the policy. Having said that, most policies provide, well, some policies provide that if you leave the country for more than a certain period of time, so if you go out of the country for, say, more than 30 days or 60 days, then the insurer will require that you report to them and that they approve that absence. If the policy is silent on that, my position would be that there's nothing in that contract, in that policy, that would prevent you from moving out of the country. Some people have reported to me that they've seen policies where it provides that you cannot move from province to province. I think policies like that are quite rare. So if you are moving due to cost of living issues from, say, British Columbia to Alberta, I don't see why that would impact your entitlement to benefits, specifically because of the move itself. Will it raise other issues? That's possible. And I'll explain it this way. I've seen people have their claims denied, not because of the move itself, but where the insurer looked at the fact that the person was moving and deducted from that they were no longer what is called job attached. In other words, that they were no longer concerned about being close to the employer if they were to improve so that they could go back to work. Also, if you were to move from one province to another province, make sure that you continue to see the doctors on a regular basis. Now, of course, you're going to have to potentially find a new treatment provider, a new doctor, and other treatment providers. So make sure that you continue to do, to the best of your ability, find them as soon as possible so that there is a continuance of care and a continuance of seeing the doctor on a regular basis, because insurance companies will look at that if you move from one province to another province to see that you are still abiding by your obligations under the policy. There's a question from Wayne on YouTube. I'm currently on short-term disability. My reason for being off was due to stress and anxiety. I'm trying to transition to LTD with the help of my doctor, but my insurer is suggesting that I should change careers. Are they allowed to deny my claim on the basis that they think I should move to a less stressful job? If you are on short-term and you are transitioning to long-term disability, again, remember what I said, nothing is ever just black or just white. There's a lot of gray. I have seen policies where from the outset of LTD, the assessment was whether the person were able to work in any occupation. Those policies are very rare. The vast majority of policies, group policies, provide that there is a period of time where you must prove that you cannot perform the duties of your own occupation. If the insurer is denying your claim because they feel that in this phase you can work in another occupation, I would say that that is inappropriate and that is wrong and unjust. Because the assessment is, can you perform the duties of your own occupation, not any occupation, if you are still even on short-term disability. That would be a different assessment if there is no own occupation period. The other thing to understand here, and this is very important, if your disability is related to stress at your workplace, in other words, your specific employer at that location, maybe there's a new manager in place who is bullying and harassing you, and the insurance company is saying, well, we're looking at that in terms of assessing this claim, and we believe that if you were to work in your own occupation, not a different occupation, your own occupation for a different employer, where there isn't this bully and there isn't the harassment happening, which would then be less stressful for you, and you're able to do that, we will be denying your claim. You will be surprised, or maybe not, how often I have that discussion with people who have been denied, because they all believe, for most of them, that if they're unable to work at their own job for their own employer because they are being bullied and harassed or they find it very stressful, that their claim should be paid. But remember, the assessment is, are you able to perform the duties of your own occupation, or rather, are you unable to perform the duties of your own occupation versus that of your own job? In other words, if you can perform your duties in your job and work for someone else where it's less stressful, then you should not be paid disability benefits, will be the position of the insurer. So the more you speak about how bad it was at that workplace and how easily you could go work somewhere else as long as you're not being bullied and harassed, you are playing into the hands of the insurance company and they will deny your claim. But for you, Wayne, I'm not sure if that is your circumstance. So please reach out to us so we can review the claim with you, see what exactly is happening here, review the policy. Is there an occupation phase, which I believe that there would be. Again, on the screen, go to disabilityrights.ca for more information. Sadia says, can the insurance use the fact that a person is denied CPP disability as pretext to say you are able to do some kind of work even if the definition in the policy is different. I have seen insurance companies do that. Will they do that? Not necessarily. The assessments are different, but sometimes always quite similar. The assessment for CPP disability is you have to prove that you cannot perform, or rather, let's speak about the policy. If you're in the any occupation phase, if you are in the any occupation phase and the insurance company is denying your claim, they're denying it on the basis that you have the ability to work in another occupation based on your transferable skills. In other words, any occupation for which you've got the transferable skills that may pay you the same as your LTD amount. For CPP disability, the assessment is you must prove that you have a condition that is, number one, severe, number two, prolonged, and number three, so bad to the extent that you cannot work in any gainful occupation. The insurance company would likely say to you, well, the definitions are similar, but it isn't always, as you say, Sadia, because sometimes a person may have been able to earn $200,000 a year. If they're able to work and earn $40,000 a year, and that's their limit, that's their capacity, they should still be found to be disabled in the any occupation phase, because that income of $40,000 compared to the LTD benefit, which may be $8,000 a month, which read to $72,000 or $84,000 a year, would not equate to be the same thing. So they should still be receiving their LTD benefit amount. But for you, if the insurance company is denying your claim because CPP disability has been denied, please reach out to us and we'll review it with you. But as a pretext, should they be doing that? No, they shouldn't. Do they do that? Sometimes they do. Jason J says, I have agoraphobia and my recreational therapist is forcing me to go outside. Should I listen to them and do what they say? So I'm not a doctor. I can speak to you about how insurance companies assess cases. If you have agoraphobia and you have a therapist recommending that you take steps to treat your condition, and that involves going outside, and the insurance company sees that and you refuse to do it, they may say that you are not following through with, recommended treatment advice, and may look at denying the claim on that basis. But that doesn't always happen. If the therapist is recommending that, consider having a discussion with your doctor as well, whether the doctor agrees with that assessment, with that recommendation, because you do not want to be in a position where your condition actually worsens. But consider taking small steps, consider listening to your treatment providers, and have this discussion with them if you do find that there is a concern that your condition may actually worsen. By taking a step back, insurance companies do look at whether people are following through with recommended treatment advice. You're very welcome, Linda B. And again, you can, if you want, contact us and we can review the policy with you. As you can see on the screen, go to disabilityrights.ca. Then there's a question on Reddit from Masha. I'm currently on LTD and going through a separation. Will a change to my marital status have an impact on my disability payments? Would spousal support or any money received from the sale of our home have an impact as well? It shouldn't. Long-term disability benefits are paid based on a policy, which is a contract. The contract itself will have provisions for deductions of certain sources. Usually, those deductions would include things like CPP disability benefits, WCB benefits, and other sources of income that you may receive as a result of your disability. For example, some group assurance that you may have, or what else could it be? Severance, if it is detailed in the policy. But selling your home, that's not employment income and should not be considered as a deduction or an offset as it is described. Getting spousal support, in my mind, is not employment income and also should not be detailed as an offset. I've never seen that. I could say this much. I've never seen spousal support or the sale of a principal home, proceeds from the sale of a principal home, as an offset in any disability policy in all the years that I've done this. People ask this often because there would be another question. Would inheritance be an offset? Or if I have rental income, I've got a tenant living in my basement, would that be a deduction? Again, my position on that would be it all depends on the language of the policy. I premise that with everything that I say, but I feel quite strongly that that should not be an offset. And I haven't seen where insurance companies have actually tried to deduct that from the benefit amount. So I'm hoping that does provide you with some assurance. But again, if that were to happen, by all means, please reach out to us and we can review the policy with you. Final question, Sadia, is it absolutely necessary to be under the care of a psychologist if you already have a psychiatrist and you already tried therapy in the past, but you didn't find it helpful? I think being under the care of a psychiatrist is very good because a psychiatrist is a physician under the terms of a policy, whereas a psychologist may not qualify as a physician as that term is qualified or defined. So definitely it's a good thing that that you are under the care of a psychiatrist. I suppose the only thing that would come into play here is if there is somebody recommending, be it a psychiatrist or a family physician, or if you saw one of the insurance company's doctors, that you be seen by a psychologist, because the psychologist provides different treatment than what the psychiatrist is prescribing to you. If there's such a recommendation, then the analysis may change. But if you strongly disagree with the insurance company's assessment, have that discussion with the psychiatrist. I think you mentioned earlier on that you have treatment-resistant depression. So that may be that you've tried this before, like you've said, didn't find it helpful. If it is to the extent that it may actually worsen your condition, I'm assuming this is what the insurance company is pushing you to do, that you actually participate in a rehab program where they want you to want to see the psychologist that they are recommending. It's a slippery slope. It's a difficult thing to manage, but the best thing that you can do is during this time, be in as regular contact as possible with your treatment providers and have them provide opinions to the insurance company. If they disagree that you should be seeing a psychologist, as is recommended by the insurance company, why that is, and what risks it may pose to your condition if you are forced to participate in treatment that they are not recommending. And again, if denied, you're welcome to reach out to us. So thanks for all the questions. That flew by quite quick. We'll do this again. The next session will be an employment law session with my partner, Lior Samfiru. That is tomorrow, April the 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And that is an employment law Q&A session. Please join. Lior knows a lot about this stuff to say, and we'll answer your questions. Thank you, Sadia. You're welcome. And I wish everybody the best.